UCLA is going to get their first Big Ten win, and this is how they're going to do it.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for your support. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel, all you got to do if you're a new customer, place your first $5 bet. You'll get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you visit FanDuel.com to get started. And where we get started today is keys to the game, right? I came out, I'm cocky, right, with that open. I'm cocky. Let's go, Bruins. Get that first home dub, beat Minnesota in a spread that's creeping closer and closer to more of an even spread at the Rose Bowl for the Bruins. Why do we think that? Is it because of the quarterback? No. It's all about UCLA coming together, regardless of the starting quarterback, and kicking some golden gopher butt. I don't want to see a big Minnesota contingent. I want to see UCLA fans going home happy after a dub in the Rose Bowl. All right? I'm tired of this nonsense. Let's get it done. This is how the Bruins need to play in order to get the job done. So let's talk about it. UCLA, number one. All right, what is key to the game, number one? It's not quarterback related. It's how well UCLA runs the ball. Yes, I'd like to see Garbers not make mistakes, or if it's Martin, play and be more dynamic. But I think this largely depends on how the running game with offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy is settled, right? Because the quarterbacks are going to have a much easier time if Minnesota has to play the run, all right? Because they even picked off Mailer Moss a couple of times last week, right? They forced some turnovers. But USC was able to run. Overall this season, you look at Minnesota's numbers when it comes to rushing defense. UCLA, mind you, top 25 in the country when it comes to rushing defense and yards per game. You look at Minnesota with their rushing defense, as I try to pull up this number on the NCAA website, Minnesota sits there not in the top 25. All right. This is a Minnesota team that allows over 4 yards per carry. All right. 4 yards per carry. Minnesota, 111th in the country when it comes to stopping the run. Their rushing offense, 111. Their rushing defense is in the mid-60s. But they do allow 4 yards per carry, all right? UCLA, their rushing offense, you look closer to the bottom there, the Bruins only average just a little over two and a half yards per carry, all right? So Minnesota, as much as Darius Taylor's a factor, technically the rushing offense is only 111th. But their best rusher did not play in the first game, and they've played Michigan, who's got a good defense and everything in between. So what does UCLA need? They need to be able to run the ball. Now, they're not going to exclusively run the ball because they're not good enough to do so, but they need to have upwards of 100 yards rushing, all right, in this game. In this game to get the job done, okay? That's what they need. That is what UCLA needs in this game to win, all right? That's what they need. If Minnesota allows 4 yards per carry and UCLA is rushing close to that, they are going to win this game. All right, they will, if they can run the ball with what Minnesota's averages are. Now, mind you, that comes after USC. That comes after Michigan, who was able to run the ball and score points on this Golden Gopher defense. Okay, and points not over 30, but points limited variety there. So UCLA has to run over 100 yards this game. And that's not even a big total. The best teams in the country are rushing for 400 yards. I mean, I know some of that's Army, but then you got Boise State with the best back in the country. The better teams are rushing for 200 yards. And I'm just asking for a little over half of that. And if they get over half of that, 100 yards in this game, closer to 125, dare I say $150, good Lord, with this team, then UCLA will win this game. But they have to run the football. Minnesota allows 4 yards per carry. Let me tell that again. 4 yards per carry, which is not horrible, but that is so much better than what UCLA has been facing when it comes to Penn State, being manhandled on the O-line, facing the LSU Tigers, facing Oregon. This is an opportunity to establish with what UCLA was finding last week against Penn State, a little bit of a rushing attack. Now those numbers go down after your quarterback gets sacked. So can they protect the quarterback, keep the rushing numbers upwards of 100 yards? 2, defensively, Max Brosmer, solid game manager, right? He's got a good completion percentage. Force him into 2 turnovers, whether it's sacking him with a strip sack, whether it's forcing an interception. I'm not sure he's going to throw 2, so that means UCLA needs an interception and a fumble. They need to force 2 turnovers in this game, all right? Because the good Lord knows UCLA will find a way to screw things up on offense, all right? They've done so every week, and last week they didn't turn it over, but they did turn it over on downs deep in opponent territory. So the Bruins need some stops and some unexpected stops. So 2 turnovers in this game will equal victory. That's how the defense can play. Yes, a lot of it is, can they generate a pass rush? Can they stop Darius Taylor? Force turnovers. Yes, you win the turnover. Generally, you win the game. UCLA has to force turnovers to account for the possible mistakes that Justin Martin could make, or if it's Ethan Garbers, that he has made in this season, usually 1 to 2 a game, at least 2 picks or a pick and a fumble in almost every game he started this year. All right? So, as much as I've been backing Garbers, you do got to account for potential turnovers or missed field goal, even though Bagani has been pretty good, other than that miss against Indiana. Now, UCLA forced 2 turnovers. 3, UCLA, yes, despite getting that opening 2 drives against Penn State, must I add, what does UCLA need to do, and what have they not done all season long? UCLA has not led from scoring first. LSU scored first, Hawaii scored first. Even Penn State, despite not scoring on the opening drive, they have not scored first. So UCLA has trailed in every single game. Now, they did lead at LSU for a little bit. They did lead at the end of the Hawaii game. There was an opportunity where UCLA should have been leading against Penn State. They took the points in the first quarter with that opening drive. But you get that opening drive stop, like generally most teams in the country do. They don't just go give up opening drive touchdowns every week. And I think this is an opportunity for the Bruins to make it back-to-back weeks. And then go score first. This is a game where you don't need to be aggressive on 4th down until late. I think that would be what I'd tell Deshaun Foster. You don't need to be aggressive on 4th down early. Unless they're at like the 36, 37, that's pushing Bagani's range and it's 4th and 2, then yes, I'd say go for it on the opening drive. But if they're well within their kicker's range, and for Bagani, he barely nailed that 54-yarder against Oregon, so not much deeper or maybe not as consistent from just beyond 50, probably the reason why he hasn't won the starting job outright these last 2 years at Cal or UCLA, but he's been very accurate, only missing like 2 kicks in his last 2 seasons as a college kicker. What UCLA needs is to get points on the board first. Maybe they take the opening kickoff and kick a field goal, all right? Maybe that's not the most exciting thing UCLA fans want to hear. It's not the most exciting thing we want to hear. But go down there and get points, dang it, all right? Do it first. Maybe it's a safety. Maybe it's something weird. Maybe the defense makes a play and gets it on the board first. They are capable of doing that this week against Minnesota. Whatever it takes, score first and see what it's like to play from a lead, like for a long time. Not just the LSU game for a half or playing from behind every week. Let's see how this UCLA team responds to getting out of the gates quickly, because they have not done that, nor have they played 4 quarters of football. They just have not. And they've played much better competition, quite frankly. But you can play better competition, lose, and play 4 quarters of football. And UCLA has not done that. So again, over 100 yards rushing. The yards per carry number is the one to look at. And large in part, you have to take away the sacks with those numbers too. Can UCLA get closer to what Minnesota allows, 4 yards per carry? Or are they going to simmer and hover around 3 yards per carry or 2 yards per carry? Then they won't be successful. If that's happening, a lot will be placed on the shoulders of whoever starts at quarterback for UCLA. Looking Garbers, but could be Martin. Then, remember, force 2 turnovers. I don't care how it comes. Force 2 turnovers in this game. And then score first. Then, all of that, I think, is a recipe for a UCLA win. Why am I so cocky and confident? Let's talk about it next. A Locked On UCLA. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink alcohol, alcohol gets converted to a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just to remember to make Z-Probiotics your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. How do you use it? Well, step one, drink the pre-alcohol. For best results, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Step two, drink responsibly. Pace yourself, hydrate, and get a good night's sleep. 3, enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Those are the 3 steps to enjoy the Z-Biotic. Now go to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. Z-Biotics is 100% backed with a money-back guarantee. It's backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege. Use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at checkout for 15% off. And now it's time to enjoy responsibly. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. The UCLA-Minnesota line, it creeps lower and lower. It's Minnesota -3.5, right? That's the line, the favorite. UCLA, it's technically an upset if they beat Minnesota at home. I think, certain terms should not be used if it's not a big upset, but UCLA are minor dogs at home at the Rose Bowl against Minnesota. A Golden Gopher team coming off a big win. They look good against Michigan. UCLA has lost 4 in a row. And despite all that, when you place your first $5 bet, you can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. I'm telling you, go chase and go place that first $5 bet on the Bruins to go plus 3.5. Place it on UCLA. 3 straight covers against big dogs, Penn State, Oregon, LSU. The Bruins have covered 3 straight weeks. Put it on UCLA plus 3.5 in the Rose Bowl, all right? And then you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Check out FanDuel.com to get started. All right, here we go on Locked On UCLA. Segment 2, what is my predictions? What do I think is going to happen? I've given you my keys. The Bruins have to rush for over 100 yards plus. They've got to force 2 turnovers and score first, and that is the key to victory in this game against the Golden Gophers. How do I think it will play out, right? And despite me hammering in that last little segment there about UCLA plus 3.5, the last time the Bruins were this close of underdogs, they actually got blown out at home by close to 30 points against Indiana. They did, but Indiana has gone out to start the season 6-0. They're ranked, and UCLA is playing their first unranked opponent or current unranked opponent since week 1 against Hawaii, right? And Hawaii's got 2 wins, albeit against 2 FCS opponents. What does UCLA do against Minnesota? I don't know. It's a weird game, right? This is a funky game. A 3-3 team who should have beat North Carolina, but one of their best players did not play. Their leading rusher did not play. They're under a new quarterback, asked him to do a lot against North Carolina, but still, North Carolina turned around and gave up 70 to James Madison, all right? And UCLA turned around and gave up to 45 to James Madison 2.0 in Kurt Cignetti and the Indiana Hoosiers, okay? So I do not think this Minnesota team is going to light up the scoreboard. If they do, if they absolutely do, this is an indictment on the long-term viability of Akaika Malloy at defensive coordinator. All right, remember, this guy was hired after Danton Lynn left and then was there in place. What is Deshaun Foster going to do? Go look for more defensive coordinators? He was already looking for an offensive coordinator and a special teams coordinator. Okay? So this is an opportunity for Akaika Malloy to flex a little bit and generate a pass rush that has been nowhere to be found. I do think UCLA gets 2 sacks, which isn't a mind-blowing number, but they generate some pressure in this game, okay? They generate some pressure, and I think what we might see on the field is hopefully a much tighter coverage by the DBs on these Minnesota receivers who have not generated lots of separation this year for big plays down the field, right? They haven't had a 50-plus yard play this year in the passing game. Darius Taylor's gone for 80 yards, and he's one of their leading receivers, second on the team in reception, third on yards. But I do think in this game, UCLA is going to be able to hit that key number 2 and force at least a turnover, at least half the key. I want 2 because I'm greedy, and that would guarantee, I think, a UCLA win by forcing 2 turnovers. But I'm very confident UCLA is going to force the Golden Gophers to not look their best in a couple of these drives. All right? This is a grand opportunity for Malloy to cement his status as the UCLA defensive coordinator. 2, for Eric Bieniemy. Yes, Minnesota, a little stronger defensively than some might anticipate. But after Penn State, Oregon, LSU, there will be no excuses after Indiana. This is an opportunity. And I do think what we're going to learn, the prediction, I think we will see Garbers play the whole game. That is my prediction, regardless of how good or bad it plays. However, if he's playing terribly, give him the hook at halftime. All right? Like, if it's clear he's not there, although he looks, all reports from practice, that he is healthy and looks much better just by simply being held out in that game against Penn State. All right, prediction time. I think the UCLA quarterback will play well in this game. The winning quarterback will play well. All right, I think UCLA wins this game 20-17. Is that cocky? Is that stupid? Is that, I don't know. I got a feeling, all right? And if they don't, there's a good possibility UCLA might not be favored for any of the remaining games of their schedule, the back half. From the road trips to Rutgers to Nebraska, all these games. You saw the Locked On Big Ten squad episode. They're not believing UCLA is going to win a game before Purdue. Before Purdue, who is awful, literally awful this year in football. Not like last year when they beat Indiana. They're awful. Purdue is terrible this year. And yes, UCLA has been pretty bad themselves. That's just the frank, stark reality. But also their last few opponents have combined to go for a record of 20-1. Quit talking about the tough schedule and beat the opponents in front of you. This is a great opportunity to do so. A 500 team in a 3-point spread at home. Those are the games where you're not favored, but you win them by 10 points. And you say, all right, you didn't know that team coming off a big win, arguably one of their biggest in the PJ Fleck era, stomping on a Big Ten newcomer in USC in upset fashion. This is where we revitalize the season, rejuvenate the optimism for Deshaun Foster, and do so with a big victory, a Big Ten victory, which the Bruins are still searching for this season. All right, this is the opportunity to get it. All right, because Rutgers on the road, that's a tough chore. Another tough trip before you hit your bye week, cross country, man, ridiculous. And the Bruins do end the season with quite a few home games and a lot less travel, right? Nebraska isn't going to Penn State and Rutgers and Hawaii and Louisiana. That's a little different of travel because Nebraska is one of the closest teams. So the travel is going to lighten, but to get that win, get that, get the pressure off the shoulders of Deshaun Foster, all right? This would be a great opportunity to do so. So I say 20-17. They do force a turnover. They get a couple of sacks. These are my predictions, not my keys. I do think they get a couple of sacks because I think the turnovers are more important than the sacks because then Minnesota will be able to run the football a little bit. And then the offense, it's got to look good one of these days, right? It's just got to. Again, Locked On Big Ten squad, they're making fun of us, man. We got to look at that job. They're saying they're as bad as Purdue, as Purdon't. All right? And I just won't accept that right now. I can't. Come on, UCLA, get that job done. Make them look like fools so I can get some free time or make some free time and go holler back at them for win number 2. All right, let's do it. Let's do it. And speaking of doing something, UCLA came out and announced who the new men's volleyball coach is going to be, taking over for John Speraw, who went and became the CEO of USA Volleyball. All right, let's talk about who's going to be the next head man for the most dominant men's volleyball program in the history of the sport. All right, who's taking over for Speraw? Talk about that next on Locked On UCLA. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash. Receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. All right, let's rock and roll. Final segment of the Locked On UCLA podcast today. Zach with you guys. Who is the new head coach of your mighty Bruin men's volleyball squad, right? Martin Germans has to make a lot of hires, right? He's going to have to find out a way to figure out the baseball stadium, hired a couple of volleyball coaches, a soccer coach. Now it's up to UCLA to do something about the men's volleyball coach. Well, they did. The man's name is John Hawks. So let's get ready to soar and fly with the Hawks of John, baby. This is a guy who is an assistant coach for UCLA from 2015 to 2022. Was most recently the head coach at Loyola Chicago, right? Loyola University of Chicago, a Rambler. And now they'll be scrambling to find a coach because the Bruins brought him over as he was named the third head coach in UCLA men's volleyball history, right? That's a prestigious position to have. A program that's dominated the sport, won back-to-back titles. The other dude's just gone and left, went from a national championship to earning a medal in the Olympics for John Speraw. He won a title as a player and an assistant and as a head coach. Those are big shoes to fill, all right? Speraw is a legend in the men's volleyball world, in the volleyball world, but the men's volleyball world collegiately, winning at Irvine, UCLA, getting medals in the Olympics for Team USA. What does Hawks bring? He is the current head coach of the USA U21 national team that won gold in the past summer at the Norseca, Norceca qualifiers in Mexico and helped get them world championships into China next year. Went 40-17 at Loyola Chicago, was the MIVA, the Midwestern Intercollegiate Volleyball Association Coach of the Year award in 2023, and coached 6 All-Americans. This is what his quote is as to taking the role. John Hawks said, "I am honored to take on the role of head coach at UCLA, a place that has meant so much to me both personally and professionally. UCLA stands as the flagship program in the country with an unmatched tradition of excellence and 21 NCAA championships." His continued quote, "The legacy built here by Al Scatz and most recently under the leadership of John Speraw is something I deeply respect and am eager to build upon." All right. And end of his quote, which still had a couple more sentences, he says, "I'm humbled to return to a program of such storied tradition and am committed to upholding its standards of excellence." So he's been at UCLA. He was there when they were competing for championships. Most recently, Loyola Chicago was 19-10, 12-4 in conference play in 24, and had the Player of the Year of the conference, some first teamers, and a Newcomer of the Year award winner. All right. So he had 2 full seasons at the helm of Loyola Chicago, where he was, 9 games over one, 14 games over 500 in the other. So he's got many opportunities, and he was an assistant coach at Long Beach State. Speaking of a big-time program, coach at UC Irvine, which set them up for success under the John Speraw era, right? They won some championships with his recruiting classes. He has been around the block, all right? He has done lots. He's served as the head coach for the USA men's national volleyball team in 2019, an assistant at Long Beach for 3 years, at Irvine for 4, and then also that other school across town that we don't want to talk about, USC, for 07 to 08. All right, he was on the sidelines when Irvine was number 1 in the country and helped lead the team to a Final Four as an assistant coach, and also was a director of volleyball at an institute in Cleveland, Ohio. All right, so he's began his career. It spanned close to 30 years. An opportunity for UCLA, right? They're going back to a new head man, and this is a big hire for Martin Germans. He's getting a lot of criticism for how he's handled football and how they're going to keep these programs going and dominant, trying to catch up with Stanford for all-time national championships in a sport they dominate. when one of their best leaves to go be the Team USA volleyball coach, right? So this is one of those hires that could fly under the radar, but this is an important one to building for the future with some players that might be leaving the program with a dominant 2-year run, because in men's volleyball, the way the champions have been going back to back, right? You win 2 and you get out. You win 2 and you get out. That's how it's been for close to the last decade plus. You win 2 and you're out. Not just win 1 out of nowhere. You win 2, you bring that class back, you win another, the new class comes in, someone else dominates. Well, it's up to Hawks to go out there and get the job done. After UCLA won 1 across the coast, won 1 in the Walter Pyramid this year, how can he uphold the excellence of 21 national championships? That's all that's standing between him and his future. So that's a big hire. John Hawks, the new UCLA men's volleyball head coach. It's a big hire to make for a program where UCLA has seen consistent dominance in the Final Four, the national championship, and nothing short of that would be considered a successful season in Westwood. All right? So the best of luck of him. Congratulations. Welcome back to UCLA. Now in a head coaching capacity. We'll just see how it works out. Big hire. It might be an under-the-radar one, but something Bruins fans will follow closely. And speaking of closely, I will have a reaction post-game for UCLA-Minnesota. So remember, watch Locked On UCLA. Thanks for tuning in. Locked On UCLA. Go Bruins. Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. I'm signing off. Get your hands, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Wait for that UCLA-Minnesota reaction. Hopefully a victory. And as always, go Bruins.